Are you in a joyless relationship? Why are you in a joyless relationship? Why are you not experiencing joy, bliss, connectedness in your relationship? In this video, we are going to discuss why we remain in a relationship even though the relationship is joyless, what some of the reasons are, and what we can do to shift that paradigm, to move out of that space of remaining in something, in a situation or an environment that simply doesn't serve us and does not align with our values. Let's look at why. Let's look at why we remain in joyless relationships. Where is your self-worth? Do you think, do you feel, do you believe that you deserve more? Do you deserve better? Where does that belief come from? Are you remaining in a relationship because perhaps you think that this is it, this is about as good as it's going to get? This is the best for me. I'm not treated well. I'm not responding and reacting well in this relationship. I'm not being the fullest of myself in this relationship, yet I'm staying here. Are you staying because of habit and patterning? Are you staying in the relationship and not addressing the issues because you are scared? Are you scared to leave, or are you scared to face the relationship and the person? The issues that are coming up in the relationship are here to tell you something about you, about where you are, about what's available to you in terms of your growth. I remember in my experiences in all of my relationships, in so many of my previous relationships, and even now sometimes the pattern comes up where I project. If there is disharmony in the relationship, if we're disagreeing or arguing, if we're butting heads, if we're triggered in the relationship, I go to projection. I go to blaming my partner. Instead of taking responsibility for where I'm at and what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling, I will blame her for not feeling well or not feeling healthy or great in the relationship. That's an immature, reactive, protective pattern. It's not bad, it's not good, it just is. But we have to identify it, we have to understand it. And sometimes we'll remain in that joyless relationship. So when we start peeling back the layers, we will remain in that joyless relationship because it's serving a part of who we are. It's serving a part of our wounding. It's feeding into this protective mechanism. And so what happens is, as we experience pain and we move through different fear and maybe even trauma in our lives, now not everyone does, but so many of us do, we develop these protective patterns, these protective mechanisms that keep us safe, that keep us somewhat healthy and alive. And we take these patterns into our adult relationships because we think, well, they once served us, so why wouldn't they serve us again? Why wouldn't they help us again? And generally, to some degree, that's true. And usually there's no real place for those patterns in today's relationships because they are coming from fear. They're coming from a reactive space where the situation, there are aspects of the present situation that may resemble the past, but it's not the past. And so why do we remain in joyless relationships? This impacts our self-worth, what we think we are allowed to have access to. We often go through life thinking we're not good enough. We're not enough, we're not smart enough, we don't deserve enough. Maybe you were told that by a parent, by a teacher. Maybe you were told you're not smart enough. Maybe you were put down in your grade, literally from grade 4 back down to grade 3. Maybe you weren't given the attention you desired when you were reaching for it. Maybe somewhere along the lines during your developmental years, you understood yourself to just not be adequate, to not be worth anything, to not be available to the world. And so what did you do? You developed a protective mechanism around this. And so you attracted situations, relationships that reinforce this point. And so why would you want to leave a joyless relationship? If you're being abused in the relationship, if you are even abusing in the relationship as well, it's reinforcing an old pattern, an old way of being. Now, even though you might be saying, but that's unhealthy, that's uncomfortable, why would I be attracted to that? Why would I be magnetized to that? Well, it's not so much that you're magnetized to, it's the protective mechanism, the coping strategy or the compensatory strategy that you're quote unquote addicted to, because that is what keeps you safe. When you're in that space and acting in that way, you are kept safe. Now, Let's go a little bit more surface level, because this is really important as well. That was some deep stuff there. It's okay to be there, but let's go to the surface a little bit more as well. So we've looked at some unworthiness, we've looked at I'm not good enough, we looked at some pain points, experiencing fear and trauma and the coping strategies that are attached to that, and we bring that into our adult relationships because it's unresolved stuff. It's unresolved issues. Now let's look at the joyless part. Now, if you're not experiencing joy in your relationship, for maybe some of those reasons or maybe other reasons, we will naturally look for joy elsewhere. Now, we're not purely hedonistic beings. That means we're not purely pleasure-seeking beings, and that is also a part of our makeup. It's also a part of what makes us as humans. We seek pleasure, we want pleasure. Now, in your relationship, if you're not experiencing intimacy and joy and pleasure with your beloved, whether it's emotional intimacy, whether it's sharing a night out, whether it's sexual intimacy and emotional connection, whether it's feeling supported in your relationship, you will seek joy elsewhere. Maybe you'll seek it in other addictive expressions, excessive food intake, alcohol, pornography, womanizing if you're a man, just infidelity, unfaithfulness, doesn't matter who you are. Maybe it's in your work, you'll immerse yourself in your work. Where you are being valued or where you are perceiving to be valued, you will experience and express joy, and that will take you away from your relationship. Now, what happens if you're taken away from your relationship? You're not putting energy into it. You're not putting attention into it. You're not valuing it. That then becomes a new pattern and a new habit. You then choose not to value your relationship. Where we lack joy, we will seek joy. And so if you are not addressing the core issues and the core wounding or woundings that you are experiencing in relationship, and you are not gaining joy, you are not experiencing joy and pleasure in your relationship in various expressions, you will seek that elsewhere. And most of us will look for a short-term gratification option. We will look for a quick fix because we live in a society like that, and it just fucking feels so good. So when we are coming from a place of feeling pain, because if we're not feeling pleasure in our relationship, there's a disconnect there. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel in alignment. We need to make that up somewhere. Most of us are too scared to deal with the issue that's at play. Now, when there are issues in a relationship or tension points, they are opportunities for growth. They are opportunities for us to look at ourselves and look at each other and learn. However, going there can be very confronting and very painful. So in that pain, we want to avoid pain because we want to seek pleasure. We are pleasure-seeking beings. And so then we will look for a quick fix, joy elsewhere. And that becomes a pattern and a habit. And we start to lose ourselves in that pattern. And so what happens is the joylessness compounds more and more in relationship. And you feel more tension, more angst, more anxiety and anxiousness. So what do to fix that, quote unquote fix that, is you go to somewhere or something that gives you joy. And somewhere along the lines, during your developmental years, you formed a belief that maybe it's food, maybe it's some form of distraction. Maybe it's pursuing something, maybe it's immersing yourself in your work where you can get feedback, validation, value. People authenticate you. They say, well done, you've done so well. And food will do that for you as well through the neurochemical hormonal hit that you get, through the pleasure that you receive from eating excessive amounts of food when you're emotionally eating, as an example. So, if you're lacking joy in your relationship, address that lack of joy. Ask where it's coming from. Ask how you feel in the relationship. Here are 3 powerful questions to ask. Am I adding value in the relationship to myself by being in this relationship? Am I adding value to the person that is in this relationship with me? Am I adding value to the relationship? And is our relationship adding value to the world? And if it's not, discuss that with your partner. I know it's confronting. Set the scene. Know your partner's love languages. Know where you're coming from. Know what's important to you. Know what your needs are. Speak to those needs. Honor those needs within you. Get to know yourself at deeper and deeper levels. And be present, because the relationship, yes, it may be joyless, but it could be also teaching you something. And maybe the relationship has an expiry date sooner rather than later, but you'll never know, and you'll never deal with your core stuff until you openly step into your power and Have those conversations. Power and blessings to you, people. See you soon.